welcome to Advancing with Amy, mental health warrior and neurospicy mama. I'm your host, Amy, a social worker and mental wellness advocate. This podcast is dedicated to supporting and empowering women on their mental health journeys. Each week, we'll delve into various topics related to mental health, neurodiversity, self-care, and personal growth. We'll feature interviews with experts, authors, and real women who have overcome struggles. Our goal is to create a community of understanding, compassion, and healing. I encourage you to join us on the journey towards wholeness, resilience, and personal transformation. All right, so we're here with Carrie today. Carrie, can you tell me about yourself?
Sure. Hi. First of all, Amy, thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, we're happy to have you.
I am a life and relationship coach. I founded ZPD Coaching, where I specialize in working with couples and families, and I lead life development groups, which I'll say more about later. I see individuals as well, but the approach that I use is really a group-based approach. In addition to running my own coaching practice, I've launched the Center for Group and Couples Coaching to train people, not only coaches, but also therapists in the social therapeutic approach so that we can have many, many more people in groups getting help with their emotional growth and development, and many, many more people trained to lead those groups.
That sounds great. I was actually looking at your website and I had a couple questions. Your group seemed to be a little different than the average group. Can you tell me a little bit about the difference in your groups, the life development groups?
Yeah, thank you for asking, actually. One of the main differences is that the groups are heterogeneous, different people, different walks of life, different issues they want to work on, all together in a group. Sometimes I run short-term groups like 6 weeks, and then I have ongoing groups. So these are people who meet weekly, regularly. Mostly it's through Zoom because my clients are around the country, and for 90 minutes. The reason that the heterogeneity is so important is there are a lot of groups out there themed by issue. What I've found methodologically is that when we presume to be sitting next to somebody with a sameness to us, we start to make assumptions and we miss out on actually really getting to know the other people in the group. And just because somebody says they're depressed doesn't mean we should all assume we know what that means. So like in my life development groups, if somebody comes in, and also I forgot to mention, I just co-authored a book on this for coaches and practitioners and how to lead the group. So one of the examples in the book is someone comes into group and says, you know, I'm so depressed. I'm so glad we're doing this by Zoom because there's no way I could get out of my bed and get to the meeting room. Somebody else in group says, oh, well, what does depressed look like to you? Do you raise your head off the pillow? Can you look out the window? Do you get out of bed? Do you, like, all of a sudden, it's not an assumption that we understand that this label that we use is so understood that there's nothing more to pursue intimately and emotionally with the person who's expressing that.
I love that. So I also was curious, your page is called ZPD Coaching.
Yeah.
What does the ZPD stand for?
Well, so social therapeutics, which is the approach that I practice, was by design created as a group-based practice able to see and relate to the group. So that's why couples work, family work, life development groups are custom made for this approach. I also use it in one-to-one work, but I relate to my clients and I as a group of two. Hey, how are we doing? For example, that makes it a group if you're acknowledging the we. So the words ZPD come from a psychologist, Lev Vygotsky, who he was around at the same time as Piaget. Many of our listeners, we would kind of all get trained up in Piaget. There's childhood development. It's very fixed stages. It's linear. Children learn spatiotemporal abilities through an internal process inside their brains and their bodies. Well, Vygotsky was looking at child development and seeing something completely different. He was seeing that it's a social, cultural process. It involves other humans at differing levels of development. When a baby babbles, we all know this, we've all done this. A baby babbles, and we all turn to the baby and say, "Oh, would you like some milk?" Like, they didn't say, "I'd like some milk, please." And we, the adults, didn't say, "Your representational abilities of language are lacking right now. We're not going to respond to you." We don't throw the grammar book at kids. We relate to kids as ahead of where they're at.
I love that too. That is great.
So you bring that into this environment, more therapeutic coaching environment. We can together as a group of different people, different walks of life, different issues, we're all at different levels of development, and we can all relate to each other as ahead of where we are. That's how we grow emotionally. Sorry.
No, that's okay. These are skills that everybody needs, and you can take them into your business life, your social life, everything. That's great. So how long have you been doing this?
25 years. I have been either in the coach's chair, or I took these skills out into the corporate world, and I worked with groups in the corporate world, meaning global change management initiatives and employee engagement initiatives. Those are all organization-wide projects where I could bring social therapeutics into those environments. And funnily enough, now, 20 years later, those two things, change management and employee engagement, can also be specialties of coaching.
Yeah, we actually have employee engagement groups now at my corporate business. So
what are the groups like?
Well, the one that I'm actually co-chair of is called Ability. It's actually for people that are either caregivers or have disabilities.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. But there's other ones too. There's one called Mosaic that is basically a diversity group. There is one called, I think, Through the Ages. I'm not sure what name they finally came up with, but it's an intergenerational group. So they have several, and it's very popular.
Really, I mean, I'm so excited about this. I do think that there's more and more recognition of the power of group work. And even some of the hotshot thought leaders are saying, hey, the unit, even in companies, the unit is the group. It's not the individual.
Right.
And so I'm out here saying, hello, everybody, social therapeutics. It was designed as a group-based method. So it's worth getting trained up in it. A lot of what gets brought into group work are the same approaches that were designed for one-on-one work.
Yes.
So it makes it harder to see the group, as a sum greater than its parts.
Well, and I think in America, we're so self-centric into me and what I'm going to achieve instead of us and what we're going to achieve, that it's a new focus.
Yes. Very important what you're saying. And again, I think we need to make the shift from me to we, which does not mean we lose our individuality. We will still be individuals with our own wants and needs and desires. But to make that shift from me to we, it's going to take a methodological shift. The tools that we have inherited, that we take to be natural, like water, are tools from the Enlightenment. And the Enlightenment was great. All these, like the tools of modern science, have brought about so many wonderful things in the world, some really horrible things too, but we'll go with the wonderful things. But that method isn't really so helpful to us today in a world where there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of emotional uncertainty. So we need different kinds of tools to keep creating our lives and feel connected with others. The tools of the Enlightenment were very individualistic focused. And again, we did a great job for the 20th century, but they've kind of run their course. And we've lived in other moments in human history where the tools of the moment run their course and humans create new tools.
Right. That's evolution.
Yeah.
So would you tell me about how you got interested in mental health? Do you have any personal experience with mental health or neurodiversity issues?
Well, always since when I was a girl, I dreamt of being a therapist. And when I went to college, I thought I would become a psychiatrist. And then in the middle of taking psychology courses, we were asked to compare, we were told that human behavior was comparable to bird behavior. This was, I guess, whatever the fights were in the late 80s in psychology. And I remember I was like, no, I am not comparing human behavior to bird behavior. I'm out. Psychology has some serious
That's
limits.
enough.
And also I went on and I did an independent study in psychology around female athletes. I was an athlete, female athletes and body image. And I learned how you can create a research project and you just bake everything in, back end it from the result that you want. So I created the surveys and I created the constructs that I wanted to measure. And then I did the survey and I got the results that supported the constructs and was kind of underwhelmed with all of that. So I went looking for social innovators, but I'll tell the rest of that story in a second. But also, yes, I was in therapy as a teenager on and off. And then as a young adult, once I found my social innovators and social therapeutics, I was in a life development group for, 20 years with the founder of social therapeutics, Fred Newman. So
amazing.
Yes. And my God, I'm a totally different person. I've grown so much, thank goodness. So I got into this again because I found people who were building it not in an ivory tower and not back-ending it from a research perspective, but actual community organizers who were out in New York City trying to create some new forms of community. And
Exciting.
both people that were working with Fred Newman in the group setting. And so to get the emotional support that they needed to go out in the world and try to create something new. And it became a real approach and method. And then other people started joining these groups. And then there were centers from the wealthiest communities of Manhattan to the arts communities to the poor communities. So it was created bottom up with solid intellectual founding from the top. So it's like we call it tool and result. It's both at the same time. Right. And when I found that, I thought, I want to learn from these people. And that's how I got here.
Sounds kind of like a grassroots startup.
Yes.
Definitely. And can you tell me a little bit about what social therapeutics actually is? Is that the group method?
Yes, that's the group
Okay.
method. That's what I trained in with Fred Newman and the East Side Institute in Manhattan. And that's the approach that is now used around the world by coaches and therapists.
I noticed you had a list of things that you can actually help people move through. Mm-hmm. And like feeling stuck in life, anger, loneliness, those kind of things. One of the ones that jumped out at me that we haven't talked about here on my show, and I think my listeners would be interested in, is social and sexual awkwardness, especially when you're going through the midlife and the menopause and your body has changed so drastically.
Yeah.
Do you see that a lot as something people want to work through?
I do see it. I see it in couples work, and I see it also in group work. And what's important about it and our awkwardnesses and the things that we go through is, we touched on this a little bit earlier, we are taught to not talk about these things or try to figure them out ourselves or do self-help and self-care. Mm-hmm. And I am a proponent of self-care. I love self-care. And We're a social species. We need others to help us see ourselves and help us grow and go beyond ourselves. So what that might look like in a group setting is someone might come in and talk about the impacts of menopause in their lives, in their sex lives, in their, the stress and not sleeping. And the activity of it is that this person is giving to the group something that's going on for them. And the group creates with it, questions it, builds with it, sees things from a different perspective. So what emerges is that this issue around awkwardness, sexual or social, becomes the group's awkwardness. And when we can, it's not impossible to do, but it doesn't feel natural because we live in such an individualistic society. When we can give and have the experience of our stuff, our private stuff being created with others, it lifts the fog. It reorganizes our experience of our pain and our awkwardness. That's the power of group work.
Wow, that's amazing. And what about inability to separate from your gadget and social media, that kind of thing? That's a big thing in today's world.
Yeah. It's a similar kind of thing. That's why the method of social therapeutics is flexible, because it is a method. It's not an off-the-shelf package that you apply onto somebody. And it's not so measuring of achieving a goal. So when clients come to me and say, I need to achieve the goal of getting off of my gadget, could you please hold me accountable for the next 6 weeks? I'll say, I don't think I can help you. That's not how I work. I can help you grow. I could be with you emotionally, relationally, as you go through a process of discovering what works for you, what doesn't work, how you're giving and sharing this with other people in your life. How are you bringing people in to be with you on this journey of disconnecting with your gadget? But if you're looking for someone to do, more accountability, cognitive things, I'm not your gal.
I like that, though, the whole talking it through and realizing kind of I'm a social worker. And so that reminds me of systems theory, when you're looking at all the different people in your life and the organizations in your life and who can help with what. So yeah, that's great.
Yes. And what I would add to that, and this is a place where social therapeutics can be unique, is the relational part of this. Part of that journey for that person is actually asking, well, what is it like for you, spouse, when I'm on my phone all the time? What's it like for you to hear me? I do this all the time in my one-on-one work. What's it like for you to hear what I'm giving to you right now? What's it like for you to say what you're saying right now to me? That's often an add-on relative to coaching. And I'm not a therapist, so you could say how much of an add-on that is, but it's important that we include as in our journeys that we impact on each other, and that we're allowed to ask each other and be curious about, how do we impact on each other? What is it like to say something hard? That's it. What it's like to say it is as important as whatever the hard thing is somebody just said.
Oh, I agree.
We live in relation with each other. We are a social species. We are impacted on by others' actions and emotions.
Yeah, I can see how you would hear some things that might be a little heavy and hard to correlate with your own self-representation, what you think of yourself.
Yeah.
So it's good that you're there to kind of walk them through that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if somebody wanted to work with you, is this an online thing or is this in person?
Most of my practice is online. My clients are from around the country and Europe and Latin America.
Wow, that probably makes it easier to be a more diverse group.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where can my listeners find out more about you?
They can go to www.zpdcoaching.com. Z as in zebra, P as in Peter, D as in David, coaching.com.
Great. And I have a lot of, like I said, I'm a social worker, so I have a lot of life coach friends, a lot of social work friends, therapist friends. Where can they find your book?
The book is called Social Therapeutic Coaching, a practical guide to group and couples work. It's available on Amazon. You could type in my name to find it, or if you can remember Social Therapeutic Coaching, the book will come up. And the first pages of the intro are available for people to read online. So you can go there, read it, see if it's something you're curious about. We're getting really great feedback from the book. It's fresh, it's different. People are buying it. People are coming to me for training. We're doing a book study right now. And it is a broad range of practitioners, which is great. I love that.
Well, wonderful. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming in today. I really enjoyed talking with you. Is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with today?
I think so. I've been thinking a lot about this recently. I have clients, and we all do, people who are in emotional pain and they don't feel like they want to go to the people in their lives to ask for help. And I really want to encourage everybody to take that risk with somebody in your life and include them in what's going on for you and what's hard for you. We really need others in our lives in an emotionally intimate way. And when we don't do that, we feel really, really alone. The loneliness crisis in this country has everything to do, even though it's recognized as a social crisis. 1 in 5 people feel very lonely or often lonely. And by the way, COVID as an epidemic was 3% of the population. So we're talking about 20% of the American population. People write about it as a social crisis, but then the only remedies they give us are individualistic. Take a pill, talk to strangers, and join a club. And I love talking to strangers, and I love doing things I'm passionate about with others. But that just goes to show you that the method that they're telling us, the individualistic method, it's not a match. It's a social issue. That's a methodological mismatch. So we have to have a more social response, which means going and including other people in your life as appropriate, or getting help and joining a life development group where you get a lot of support. That's how we're going to grow.
Yes, I agree. That is such great advice, especially in a country where our population is aging and our elderly are at home and very lonely.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. Carrie, thanks again for coming on today.
Thank you, Amy.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Advancing with Amy. Remember, while I'm not a licensed therapist, I offer a safe space for exploration, learning, and growth. If you need professional help, don't hesitate to seek it. If you or someone you know is in danger, please reach out for emergency assistance. You can always text 988 for support. Let's continue to build a supportive and inspiring space for women to explore, learn, and grow together. Take care of yourselves and each other. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations and insights. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Until next week, keep advancing, warriors.